The crystal spires of Paralyzed Station stretched toward the artificial stars like frozen waterfalls, each surface reflecting the gentle light of the habitat's carefully controlled sun. From her penthouse balcony, Zaratil Velnashi could see the entire orbital complex spread below her, a monument to wealth and technological achievement that housed the galaxy's elite in perfect, sterile comfort. "Mother, the neural interface is acting up again," came the synthesized voice from behind her, each word carefully constructed by machines that translated thought into sound. Zaratil turned to see her daughter Liana maneuvering her hover chair through the penthouse's spacious rooms, her 12-year-old face showing the patience that came from years of dealing with technology that was supposed to make her life easier but never quite worked perfectly. The chair's anti-gravity systems hummed softly as it adjusted to her movements, responding to neural commands that bypassed the damaged pathways that should have controlled her legs. "Let me call the technicians," Zaratil said, moving toward the communication panel that connected her to a staff of dozens whose only job was maintaining the complex systems that kept her daughter mobile and able to communicate. "It's okay," Liana replied through the interface, though Zaratil could see the frustration in her violet eyes, the same shade that marked all Velthari, but somehow dimmed by the constant struggle with her condition. "I can manage." Zaratil felt the familiar weight of helplessness settle in her chest. She was the CEO of Velnashi Biotechnologies, a company that had revolutionized medical treatment across 47 star systems. Her innovations in neural regeneration had restored movement to thousands of patients from dozens of different species. Her genetic therapy protocols had eliminated diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia. Her personal fortune exceeded the gross domestic product of most planetary governments. None of it could help her daughter. "Dr. Kessel called this morning," Zaratil said, settling into the chair beside Liana's hover unit. "He has some preliminary results from the latest scans." Liana's expression didn't change, but her pointed ears, the elegant trademark of their species, drooped slightly. "More bad news." "The progression has slowed," Zaratil said carefully, which was technically true. The neural degeneration that had gradually stolen her daughter's mobility and speech had stabilized at its current level, which meant things weren't getting worse. But they weren't getting better either. "That's good, right?" Liana asked, though the synthesized voice couldn't convey the hope or fear behind the words. "It's progress," Zaratil lied, because hope was sometimes more important than honesty. She watched her daughter navigate through the penthouse, noting how naturally Liana had adapted to her limitations. The hover chair moved through spaces designed specifically for it, past art collections worth more than most people's homes, through rooms filled with every comfort and luxury imaginable. But Zaratil would have traded it all, every credit, every business success, every technological marvel, for the simple sight of her daughter running through a garden or laughing without the mechanical intermediary of the neural interface. "I finished reading the new anthology you got me," Liana said, piloting her chair to the massive window that dominated the eastern wall. "The one with stories from Earth. Did you enjoy it? The humans write differently than we do. Their stories are more chaotic. But I like that. They don't always end the way you expect." Zaratil joined her daughter at the window, looking out at the bustling commercial district where beings from dozens of species conducted business in the galaxy's most exclusive trading hub. "What did you think of the one about the boy who couldn't walk?" "Flowers for Algernon," Liana said immediately. The neural interface captured her enthusiasm, giving the synthesized voice a slight uptick that approximated excitement. "It was sad, but beautiful. The way he kept hoping even when everything seemed impossible." The comment struck Zaratil like a physical blow. Her daughter was identifying with fictional characters who faced challenges similar to her own, finding comfort in stories about people who refused to give up even when science offered no solutions. "Maybe we should take a trip," Zaratil suggested suddenly. "Visit Earth, see where those stories come from." "I'd like that," Liana replied, though they both knew such trips were complicated by her medical needs and the portable life support systems required to maintain her hover chair and neural interface in different atmospheric conditions. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Zaratil's personal assistant appeared on the communication screen, her expression showing the careful neutrality of someone delivering news that might be unwelcome. "Ma'am, Dr. Vexthera from the Andromedan Medical Collective has completed his analysis of Lady Lyanna's case files. He requests a conference call at your earliest convenience." Zaratil felt her stomach drop. Dr. Vexthera represented the most advanced neurological expertise in known space. If anyone could offer hope, it would be him. But his tone suggested this consultation would end like all the others. "Schedule it for this afternoon," she said, then muted the connection. "Another specialist?" Lyanna asked. "The best neurologist the Andromedans have. And if he can't help either?" Zaratil looked at her daughter, brilliant, brave, trapped in a body that betrayed her more each day, and realized she didn't have an answer. They had consulted with medical experts from every advanced civilization in the galaxy. They had tried experimental treatments, revolutionary procedures, and technologies so cutting-edge they existed only in prototype form. "Then we keep looking," she said finally, though she was running out of places to look and people to ask. Dr. Vexthera's image filled the wall screen with the kind of clinical precision that Zaratil had come to associate with devastating news. The Andromedan's 4 eyes moved independently as he consulted multiple data streams simultaneously, his blue-tinged skin shifting through subtle color changes that indicated deep concentration. "Lady Velnashi," he began in the formal tone that medical professionals used when delivering hopeless diagnoses, "I have completed my analysis of your daughter's neural architecture and genetic profiles." Zaratil sat in her office chair while Lyanna hovered nearby, both of them surrounded by holographic displays showing brain scans, genetic sequences, and treatment protocols that had failed over the past 3 years. The data told a story of gradual deterioration that no known medical intervention had been able to reverse. The mutation affecting Lady Lyanna's motor cortex and speech centers is unlike anything in our medical databases, Dr. Vexthera continued. The protein misfolding creates cascade failures that spread along neural pathways faster than our regeneration protocols can repair them. But the progression has slowed, Zaratil pointed out, grasping for any positive interpretation of the data. "Yes, due to the cocktail of inhibitors you've been administering. However, this represents a plateau rather than true improvement. The damaged pathways cannot be restored using current technology." Lyanna's hover chair moved closer to the screen, her neural interface translating her thoughts into words with mechanical precision. "Doctor, what about experimental treatments? Things that haven't been tried yet?" Dr. Vexthera's expression softened slightly, a small mercy for a child asking about her own future. "Young lady, your mother has already funded 3 separate research initiatives specifically targeting your condition. The best minds from 4 different civilizations have examined your case. I'm afraid we have exhausted all conventional approaches." "What about unconventional approaches?" Zaratil asked desperately. "There are some theoretical possibilities. The Centauri have experimental nanosurgery techniques that might address individual neurons, but the risk of further damage is enormous. The Rigelians have developed consciousness transfer protocols, but those remain untested in living subjects." Zaratil felt her hands clench. Every option seemed to involve either impossible risks or admitting defeat. "What would you do if this was your daughter?" The Andromedan was quiet for a long moment, his multiple eyes focusing on different displays before converging on her face. "I would love her, ensure her comfort, and help her find meaning within her limitations. Sometimes, Lady Velnashi, acceptance is the most difficult medicine to prescribe." After the call ended, Zaratil sat in silence while Lyanna navigated around the office, her hover chair moving between displays that showed the financial empire built on medical breakthroughs that couldn't help when they were needed most. "Mother," Lyanna said finally, "it's okay." "No, it's not okay," Zaratil replied with more vehemence than she'd intended. "It's not okay that I can fund research stations and buy entire medical facilities, but I can't help my own daughter walk. But you have helped me. The hover chair, the neural interface, all the accommodations you've made. Those aren't solutions, they're accommodations. There's a difference." Lyanna was quiet for a moment, her chair's systems humming softly as she processed thoughts that the interface couldn't fully translate. Do you remember the story about the human inventor who couldn't cure his daughter's blindness, so he taught her to navigate by sound instead? Zaratil nodded, recognizing the reference to one of the Earth stories Lyanna had been reading. Maybe some problems don't have solutions, just different ways of living with them. The wisdom in her daughter's words made Zaratil's heart ache. 12 years old, facing a progressive neurological condition, and Lyanna was comforting her mother instead of the other way around. I'm not ready to give up, Zaratil said firmly. I know. That's one of the things I love about you. That evening, Zaratil stood on her balcony overlooking Paralyzed Station's bustling commercial district, watching the streams of beings from dozens of species going about their daily lives. Somewhere down there, people were solving problems, making discoveries, pushing boundaries that others had declared impossible. Personal assistant, she called to the room's AI system. Yes, Lady Velnashi. I want you to compile a database of every medical practitioner on this station. Not just the specialists and the expensive clinics. Everyone. Include the charity workers, the research assistants, the alternative medicine practitioners. Anyone who deals with neurological conditions or rehabilitation. Searching now. May I ask what parameters you'd like me to use for evaluation? Zaratil thought about Dr. Vextera's advice about acceptance, about conventional wisdom that said some problems couldn't be solved. Don't evaluate them. Just list them. Sometimes the answer comes from the most unexpected places. Database compilation will be complete within 2 hours. Zaratil remained on the balcony as Paralyzed Station's artificial night cycle began, watching lights twinkle in the darkness like stars that had been tamed and brought indoors. Somewhere in that vast complex of wealth and technology and expertise, there had to be someone who saw possibilities instead of limitations. She just had to find them before she ran out of hope entirely. The charity medical clinic occupied a forgotten corner of Paralyzed Station's lower levels, tucked between recycling facilities and maintenance shops in an area that wealthy residents rarely visited. Zaratil had taken a wrong turn while touring potential sites for a new research facility when she stumbled upon the cramped waiting area filled with beings who clearly couldn't afford the premium medical services available in the station's upper districts. Ma'am, I think you're lost, said a security guard politely, noting her expensive clothing and the obvious confusion on her face. Perhaps, Zaratil replied, but something made her hesitate before leaving. Through an open doorway, she could see a human physician working with a young boy who was struggling with mobility issues similar to Lyanna's condition. The human was Dr. Michael Torres according to the nameplate on his desk, and his approach to treatment was unlike anything Zaratil had witnessed in the high-tech medical facilities she'd visited. Instead of relying primarily on sophisticated equipment, he worked directly with his patient using manual manipulation techniques, encouraging small movements, and speaking with the kind of enthusiasm that suggested he actually believed improvement was possible. Excellent, Jamie, Dr. Torres was saying to the human boy. That's the best range of motion I've seen from you yet. Your nervous system is learning new pathways every day. But it hurts sometimes, the boy replied. Pain means your body is working to heal itself. We just have to teach it how. Zaratil found herself drawn into the room, watching as the human doctor guided his patient through exercises that combined physical movement with cognitive challenges. The boy's condition appeared to be degenerative, yet Dr. Torres treated him as if recovery was inevitable rather than impossible. Excuse me, Zaratil said during a break in the session, I couldn't help but notice your treatment approach. Are you familiar with Veltheri neurological conditions? Dr. Torres looked up with the kind of immediate attention that suggested he was genuinely interested in any medical discussion. Some. I've studied cases from several non-human species. Neural plasticity seems to be a universal characteristic among sentient beings, though the specific pathways vary. Neural plasticity. The brain's ability to form new connections when existing ones are damaged. Human medicine has made significant advances in this area because we've had to. Our species has a history of surviving trauma that should have been fatal. Zaratil felt a spark of something she hadn't experienced in months, curiosity. You believe damaged neural pathways can be restored? Not restored, exactly. But bypassed, worked around, compensated for. The brain is remarkably adaptive when given the right encouragement. She thought about all the specialists who had examined Lionna's scans and pronounced her condition irreversible. What about progressive degenerative conditions? Dr. Torres set down his medical instruments and gave her his complete attention. Those are more challenging, but not hopeless. The key is understanding that the brain doesn't just passively accept damage, it actively seeks alternate routes for neural communication. We just have to help it find them. I have a daughter, Zaratil said carefully, with a rare neurological condition. Multiple specialists have said nothing more can be done. I'd be happy to take a look, if you'd like a second opinion. Or in your case, probably a 15th opinion. The comment was made with gentle humor, but it struck close to home. You wouldn't be intimidated by a complex case that has stumped the best neurologists in the galaxy. Dr. Velnashi, Torres said, somehow recognizing her despite her casual clothing and the improbable location of their meeting. Human medicine is built on the principle that there's always something more we can try. We might not always succeed, but we never stop looking for possibilities. How did you know who I am? Your company's neural regeneration research has been revolutionary. I've used your protocols to help dozens of patients. But sometimes the most advanced technology needs to be combined with more basic approaches. Basic approaches? Physical therapy, cognitive exercises, and most importantly, the belief that improvement is always possible. Hope is a powerful medicine that we tend to underestimate. Zaratil studied the human doctor, noting the confidence in his voice that wasn't based on arrogance but on genuine conviction. Would you be willing to consult on my daughter's case? I'd be honored. Though I should warn you, my methods might seem primitive compared to what you're used to. Dr. Torres, at this point, I'm willing to try anything that offers hope instead of acceptance. Then let's see what we can do. That evening, Zaratil found herself reviewing Dr. Torres' credentials and research papers, discovering that human medicine had indeed made remarkable advances in neural rehabilitation. Their approach emphasized the body's natural healing capacity rather than simply replacing function with technology. Mother? Lionna's synthesized voice interrupted her reading. You seem excited about something. I met someone today who thinks your condition might not be as hopeless as everyone else believes. Another specialist? A human doctor who works with patients everyone else has given up on. Lionna's hover chair moved closer, her violet eyes showing the first glimmer of hope Zaratil had seen in months. And he thinks he can help me? He thinks it's worth trying. Which is more than anyone else has said in a very long time. When can I meet him? Zaratil looked at her daughter, brilliant, brave, and still fighting despite every medical authority telling her to accept her limitations, and felt something she hadn't experienced since Lionna's diagnosis, genuine optimism. Tomorrow, she said. We'll start tomorrow. Dr. Torres' first visit to the penthouse's medical suite surprised Zaratil by how much time he spent simply talking with Lionna rather than examining her extensive medical records. Using a combination of sign language, careful observation, and patient interaction with the neural interface, he established a connection that went far beyond clinical assessment. Tell me about your dreams, he said to Lionna, settling into a chair at her eye level rather than standing over her in the traditional doctor-patient configuration. Dreams? The synthesized voice couldn't convey confusion, but Lionna's expression showed her surprise at the unusual question. When you sleep, do you dream about running? Flying? Dancing? Yes, Lionna replied immediately. In my dreams, I move like other Velfari. I can dance at the seasonal festivals and run through gardens without the hover chair. Dr. Torres nodded thoughtfully. That's excellent news. It means your brain still remembers how movement should feel, even if the pathways to make it happen are damaged. But dreams aren't reality, Zaratil pointed out. Dreams are neural activity, Torres corrected gently. They're evidence that the motor cortex is still functional at some level. We just need to help it find new ways to connect with the rest of the nervous system. Over the following weeks, Dr. Torres introduced Lionel to a treatment regimen unlike anything the family had previously encountered. Instead of focusing solely on technology, he combined cutting-edge human understanding of neuroplasticity with intensive physical therapy that encouraged the brain to form new pathways around damaged areas. The key, he explained to Zaratil during one of their sessions, is understanding that the brain doesn't give up easily. When one route is blocked, it will search for alternatives if we give it the right encouragement. The process was slow and often frustrating. Lionel worked for hours each day on exercises that seemed impossibly basic, attempting to move individual fingers, practicing vocal sounds without the neural interface, trying to shift her weight in ways that would eventually lead to standing. "I don't feel any different," Lionel said after 3 weeks of intensive therapy. "Look at your hand," Dr. Torres replied, pointing to her left fingers. 3 weeks ago, you couldn't move your pinky independently. Now watch." Lionel focused on her hand and, with visible concentration, managed to curl her smallest finger while keeping the other straight. The movement was tiny, almost imperceptible, but it was voluntary motion she hadn't possessed in over 2 years. "I did that," she whispered, staring at her hand in amazement. "You did that," Torres confirmed. "Your brain found a new pathway to your finger. Now we teach it to find pathways to everything else." The breakthrough came during a family dinner 8 weeks into treatment. Lionel had been working on core stability exercises, gradually building the strength and neural connections necessary for more complex movements. As they sat around the dining table discussing her progress, she suddenly placed her hands on the arms of her hover chair and began to push herself upward. "Lionel," Zaratil said in alarm, moving to help her daughter before Torres gestured for her to wait. "Let her try," he said quietly. With tremendous effort and visible determination, Lionel managed to rise from her chair and stand on her own legs for the first time in 3 years. The movement was unsteady, her legs shaking with the effort, but she was vertical and supporting her own weight. "I'm standing," she said, her voice coming directly from her own vocal cords rather than the neural interface. The words were slurred and difficult to understand, but they were hers. Zaratil's crystal wine glass slipped from her nerveless fingers, shattering on the floor as she watched her daughter take her first halting step, then another, moving slowly but deliberately across the dining room toward her. "I'm walking, Mother," Lionel said, tears streaming down her face as she covered the short distance between them. "I'm actually walking." Zaratil caught her daughter in an embrace that was 3 years overdue, both of them crying as Lionel's arms, which hadn't moved voluntarily in so long, wrapped around her mother's neck. "How?" Zaratil asked Dr. Torres, who was watching the reunion with the satisfied expression of someone who had never doubted this moment would come. "The brain is more resilient than we give it credit for," he replied. Lionel's neural pathways weren't destroyed, they were blocked. Human rehabilitation techniques focus on teaching the brain to build detours around the blockages. But all the specialists said. The specialists were looking at the problem from a purely technological perspective, Torres explained. They wanted to repair the damaged pathways. I wanted to help her brain learn to ignore them and use different ones instead. 6 months later, Lionel was walking unassisted and speaking clearly, though she still used the hover chair when she was tired. Her recovery wasn't complete, it might never be, but she had regained enough function to participate in activities that had seemed impossible just a year earlier. The funny thing is, Lionel told her mother as they walked together through the penthouse gardens, actually walked, side by side, "I don't think I appreciate movement any less now that I know what it's like to lose it." Dr. Torres says that's common among his patients. Overcoming disability often creates a deeper appreciation for ability. He changed our whole family, didn't he? Zaratil nodded, thinking about the research initiative she'd established to combine Velthari medical technology with human healing philosophies. He reminded us that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. Sometimes it's about finding new ways to work with what we have. Are you going to help other families like ours? That's the plan. Dr. Torres has agreed to head the new institute. We're going to make sure other parents don't have to choose between hope and medical expertise. As they walked, Zaratil reflected on how a chance encounter in a charity clinic had led to her daughter's recovery and a fundamental shift in her understanding of medicine. Torres hadn't given them advanced technology or miracle drugs, he'd given them something far more valuable, the human belief that healing was always possible and that every person deserved the chance to exceed the limitations placed upon them. The broken glass from that dinner had been swept away, but Zaratil kept one small shard in her office as a reminder that sometimes the most precious moments come from the most unexpected sources, and that wealth means nothing compared to the gift of watching your child take her first steps toward a future you'd almost stopped believing was possible.